Section 1. Early Life and Context *, before he was Chief Keef. Before Love Sosa rang through every speaker on the South Side. Before he became a name that defined a generation of drill rap, he was Keith Farrell Kuzort, born on August 15, 1995, in Chicago, Illinois. Raised in the rough streets of the South Side, in the Parkway Gardens projects, a place locals call O-Block. Keith's story begins not in fame, but in struggle. He was born to a 16-year-old single mother, Lolita Carter. His father was mostly absent. From a young age, Keef was surrounded by violence, instability, and the brutal rhythms of life in the inner city. But amid all that, he found something else: music. And he found it early. By the time he was 5 years old, he was already playing around with his grandmother's karaoke machine, recording his voice on cassette tapes. His influences weren't polished pop stars. They were local legends and street poets: Gucci Mane, Lil Wayne, Soulja Boy, and a host of Chicago drill pioneers. Before the genre even had a name, growing up in O-Block meant growing up fast. The streets demanded it. Keef attended Dulles Elementary School and later Dyett High School, but academics were never his focus. He eventually dropped out by age 15. His education came not from textbooks, but from the neighborhood, a place where survival was lesson number one. At around the same time, Keef began uploading tracks on YouTube and DatPiff. Under the name Chief Keef, a combination of a nickname and his ties to the Black Disciples gang, where Chief denotes a position of leadership. The name would soon become much more than a street alias. It would become a brand, a movement, and a cultural lightning rod by 2011. Keef was building buzz in Chicago's underground. His early mixtapes, The Glory Road and Bang, were raw, unfiltered, and full of the aggressive energy that would later define the drill sound. But then something unexpected happened: house arrest. In December 2011, just 16 years old, Chief Keef was arrested for allegedly pointing a gun at police officers. He was placed under house arrest for 30 days, then under home confinement for another 30. For many kids, that would be a setback. But for Keef, it became an opportunity. Stuck in his grandmother's apartment, Keef doubled down on music. He started uploading video after video, grainy clips of him rapping in his living room, shirtless, dreadheaded, gun in hand, speaking the language of the streets with unfiltered authenticity. One of those tracks would change everything. Don't Like. The song exploded. At first, just locally on Twitter, in clubs, in the back seats of cars all over Chicago. But it didn't stay local for long. The beat, produced by Young Chop, was minimalist, hard-hitting, and unlike anything on the charts. The hook, "That's that *T I don't like," became a rallying cry. Then, in 2012, Kanye West remixed it. Suddenly, Chief Keef wasn't just a neighborhood star, he was national, global. The remix featured Kanye, Pusha T, Jadakiss, and Big Sean, a cosign that told the industry this 16-year-old from Chicago was the future. And he wasn't asking for permission. But before the record deals and the fame, before the magazine covers and controversies, Keef was just a kid, a product of a broken system. Trying to make sense of the world through music, his early life, wasn't glamorous. It wasn't polished. But it was real, and in a world where image often outweighs truth. Chief Keef's authenticity, however controversial, was magnetic. He wasn't pretending to be from the streets. He was the streets, for better or worse. He was about to put drill music on the global map. Section 2, Rise of Drill and Breakthrough by early 2012. The name Chief Keef had begun to ripple. Beyond Chicago's South Side, I Don't Like was more than just a viral song. It was an anthem. The way Keef rapped was different. Cold, distant, almost emotionless. But behind the deadpan delivery was rage, pain, and survival. This was drill music, and whether the world was ready for it or not, it was coming. Drill was born in Chicago, not in the clubs, but on the corners. It was the voice of kids raised in poverty and gun violence who never expected to see 21. The sound was darker than trap, harsher than boom bap. It didn't glamorize the struggle, it lived in it. The production, led by Young Chop and others, was ominous, minimal, and haunting. And at the center of it all, Chief Keef. While most of America was still dancing to polished pop and radio-friendly rap, Keef represented a shift. He wasn't rapping at the industry, he was rapping in spite of it. His lyrics weren't metaphors. They were reports, street documentation, over 800 eights, and that's what made people uncomfortable and fascinated as I Don't Like climbed in views. Keef became the face of a youth movement, one that had no filter, no PR team, and no patience for rules. The Kanye West remix only amplified things. For a teenager still on probation, suddenly being name-dropped by the was like being shot into the stratosphere. But Chief Keef didn't react like most young artists would. No interviews, no media appearances, no awards show circuits. He stayed in Chicago, still in the streets, still with his day ones. Still dangerous. Major labels came calling anyway. By the middle of 2012, Interscope Records won the bidding war and signed Chief Keef to a multi-album deal rumored to be worth over $6 million. It included his own label imprint, Glory Boys Entertainment, or GBE, which he co-founded with his cousin Fredo Santana. Suddenly, a group of teenagers from the South Side had a real stake in the music industry, and then came the debut album, Finally Rich, released on December 18th, 2012. Finally, Rich was raw, loud, and unapologetically street. It featured guest spots from 50 Cent, Wiz Khalifa, Rick Ross, and of course, Lil Reese. But it wasn't the features people cared about. It was the world Chief Keef had created, a brutal, rebellious, hypnotic world of his own design. The standout track? Love Sosa, a simple piano loop, a thundering beat, and a hook that made it impossible not to scream along. These beaches love Sosa, oh, end or no end. Asterisk, the song was electric. It blew up on social media, in clubs, in high schools, everyone. Even people far removed from the realities of Chicago were captivated. Why? Because it didn't sound like anything else. It wasn't polished. It wasn't pretty. But it was real. Love Sosa reached no. 56 on the Billboard Hot 100. It's an incredible feat for an artist whose entire existence seemed to push against the mainstream. The music video, with Keef and his crew rapping in a living room, felt more real than any $1 million production. In a music industry obsessed with shine, Chief Keef gave people the raw feed. And they ate it up. But success brought problems. Keef missed his own video shoot for Hate Being Sober, where 50 Cent and Wiz Khalifa showed up. But he didn't. He skipped shows, dodged interviews, and clashed with label expectations. The industry wanted a star they could shape. Keef wasn't interested in being molded. He wanted to do things his way. His unpredictable behavior became legendary. There were tweets that made headlines, arrests that made news cycles, and a growing reputation as someone who couldn't be controlled. But the more the media criticized him, the more fans admired his defiance. To many, Keef wasn't just an artist. He was a symbol, a teenage rebel, a genius to some, a menace to others. But undeniably authentic. He represented a generation that had been ignored, criminalized, and silenced. And now they had a voice. The GBE movement started to grow. Lil Reese, Fredo Santana, SD, and others began releasing their own projects. 300 became more than a crew. It became a mythos, a symbol of loyalty, pain, and power. The influence of Chief Keef in the drill scene was now global. You could hear it in London, New York, in Paris. Everyone was watching Chicago, but back home things were getting harder. The violence in Chicago was escalating. Keef's fame didn't shield him from the street politics he grew up in. He lost close friends to gun violence. Rival crews began dissing GBE online and in tracks. And Keef, still a teenager, was dealing with all of it in real time. No buffer. No filter. No escape. And while the music kept going, so did the court dates. Probation violations. Weapons charges. Missed child support payments. Chief Keef was barely out of high school, but already buried in legal trouble. His label was growing concerned. Potential was there, but the chaos threatened to consume it. In March 2013, Chief Keef was sentenced to 60 days in juvenile detention for violating probation. It was a wake-up call, or at least could have been. But if there's one thing consistent about Chief Keef, it's that he's never followed the script. After his release, he went right back to the studio, right back to the streets. Right, back to being Sosa, and that's what made him so polarizing. To some, he was throwing away his shot. To others, he was staying true to himself. The industry wanted polish, he gave them passion. They wanted discipline, he gave them danger. Still, the impact couldn't be denied. By the end of 2013, Chief Keef had helped birth a genre. Drill music, once just a local sound, was now a global movement. Rappers in the UK, New York, and even Asia were taking inspiration from his flow, his beats, his aesthetic. Whether they wanted to admit it or not, the music world had changed. And it was Chief Keef who lit the fuse. But fame is a double-edged sword. And as 2014 approached, it was clear the chaos that had fueled Chief Keef's rise might also be what brought him down. Asterisk, asterisk. Section 3. Major label fallout and independent era asterisk by early 2014. Chief Keef was still one of the most talked about artists in hip-hop, but not for the reasons his label hoped. Behind the scenes at Interscope, conversations had shifted. They'd signed a teenage rebel with a street buzz, hoping to mold him into a bankable superstar. But instead, they got Chief Keef. Unapologetic, wild, unpredictable. His debut album, Finally Rich, had done well, but not blockbuster numbers. Success was driven by singles, not mainstream appeal. And more than anything, Keef just wasn't playing the industry game. He missed scheduled appearances, declined to do promo, and often seemed indifferent to expectations. Then came more trouble. In 2014, Keef was evicted from his Highland Park mansion. His spending habits were out of control. His circle was growing, not always with the right people. And tragedy struck again when his cousin and collaborator, Blood Money, was shot and killed in Chicago just hours after signing a record deal of his own. The message was clear. Fame hadn't saved Keef from the life he was trying to escape. The violence followed him, no matter how far he moved from O-Block. And emotionally, he was slipping. By mid-2014, Interscope had had enough. After multiple delays and disputes over Keef's second album, the label dropped him. For most artists, that would be a major setback. But for Chief Keef, it was the beginning of something new. Complete independence. No more label oversight. Deadlines. No filters. Just Sosa, uncut, and he went crazy with it. Between 2014 and 2015, Keef dropped a flood of music. Mixtapes like Back from the Dead 2, Big Gucci Sosa with Gucci Mane, sorry for the wait, and Almighty DP showcased a new version of Keef, darker, weirder, more experimental. He wasn't just rapping now, he was producing too. He started using his own beats, often tagged produced by Sosa on the beat. The production was chaotic, lo-fi, sometimes offbeat, but that was the point. He wasn't trying to sound clean, he was trying to sound real. Back from the Dead 2, in particular, was a turning point. The beats were eerie and distorted. The lyrics were more abstract, more detached. It didn't feel like a drill album. It felt like something else entirely. Critics didn't know what to make of it, but fans? They were obsessed. This was Keef, with no restrictions. A one-man army. And while mainstream media started to move on, a cult following was forming, especially online. Reddit threads, SoundCloud comments, Twitter memes. Sosa had become more than a rapper. It was a culture. But freedom came at a cost. Without the structure of a label, Keef's projects often lacked rollout, promotion, or polish. Some mixtapes dropped with no announcement, others leaked. Many were unfinished. Some songs were so distorted they sounded like they were recorded through a tin can. But for his fans, that was the appeal. There was something raw, even punk, about Chief Keef's independence. He was breaking rules not just of the music industry, but of sound itself. In 2015, Keef announced an album called The Kuzart. It was teased for years, with track lists, snippets, and artwork surfacing online. But it wouldn't arrive until much later. Instead, Keef kept flooding the streets with mixtapes. Bang 3 finally dropped in 2 parts. The first in August 2015, the second a month later. It was a return to a more accessible sound. Cleaner production. More features. But by then, Keef's core fans didn't care about commercial success. They just wanted more Sosa. Around the same time, Keef declared himself retired, just 20 years old and already a veteran of chaos, fame, and pressure. But the retirement didn't stick. It never does. In between releases, Chief Keef became increasingly reclusive. He moved to California. He kept a lower profile. But tragedy continued to strike. In 2018, his cousin and frequent collaborator, Fredo Santana, died from a seizure linked to lean addiction. Fredo wasn't just family. He was a creative partner, a stabilizing force, and a brother. His death hit Keef hard. In his honor, Keef released Dedication, a project that showed a more introspective side. Tracks like Mailbox and Kills hinted at growth, maturity, a willingness to explore his pain rather than just numb it. Even so, Keef never fully stepped into the spotlight again. He didn't want the fame. He didn't chase clout. He let the music speak, and those who were listening heard it. Meanwhile, his influence kept spreading. Artists like Lil Uzi Vert, Playboi Carti, Juice WRLD, and Trippie Redd all cited Keef as a major inspiration. You could hear it in their flows, their delivery, their attitude. The distorted 808s, the mumble-adjacent vocals, the genre-blurring production. It all traced back to Sosa. By the late 2010s, Chief Keef wasn't topping charts, but he was shaping the sound of the next generation. And then, in 2020, something interesting happened. Chief Keef produced a track for Lil Uzi Vert's long-awaited album Eternal Atake. The song? Chrome Heart Tags. The sound was signature Keef, eerie, spacey, emotional. But now it was Uzi rapping over it. It was a full-circle moment, a student becoming the star over a beat made by the teacher. Chief Keef's influence had come full circle. He wasn't just a rapper anymore. He was a blueprint. He had survived the storm, fame, violence, addiction, lawsuits, and loss. He had created his own lane. Whether the world noticed or not, he kept building. He didn't care about validation. He was the validation. He wasn't chasing trends. He was the trend, and he wasn't going anywhere.